This episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast is sponsored by the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for Perimenopausal Women. As a woman in the modern world, our hormones are taking a battering. They're impacted by the food we eat, the toxins we're exposed to, such as when we eat out of plastic takeaway containers, or even worse, reheat food in them. Please don't do this. If you're handling FPOS receipts, filling the car with fuel, eating non-organic produce that hasn't been washed effectively, plus so much more things add to our toxic load every day. Even though our bodies are designed to effectively manage toxins, they haven't evolved as quickly as our toxic world has, unfortunately. So our body does need support. Symptoms such as stubborn weight gain, fatigue, disrupted periods, irritability, and gut health issues can be a sign that you'd benefit from a gentle detox. And that's why I developed the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for Perimenopausal Women. This free guide has an abundance of information to get you started on your very own DIY detox. And if you'd like to upgrade to VIP, it's only $47 for a limited time. I used to sell this program for $247. The upgrade gives you the recipes, including plenty of plant-based options, the meal planner, the shopping list template, the video workshop, and so much more. Click the link in the show notes to learn more now. Take care of your hormones. They are a critical part of your health as a woman. Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to Q&A Thursday with me, Susie. And this week's question is from Izzy. Izzy is from Perth, and she asks, why do women put on weight with perimenopause and menopause? It's a pretty simple, I guess, in many ways question, but it's not really simple if you're experiencing this weight gain. And when I say the answer is simple, it's essentially the hormonal changes, so the decrease essentially in progesterone and estrogen. Even though we do get surges of estrogen, the general trend is for it to deplete as time goes on, as you hit menopause. So this decrease in those hormones and testosterone as well, along with just, I know this sounds terrible, aging in general, because once we kind of hit 40, our muscle mass starts decreasing. And that's a really important part of this sort of weight gain process. So there's two aspects of this. Actually, there's more than two, but just for simplicity, Izzy, the decrease in these sex hormones triggers metabolic changes in the body. One of these changes is the decrease in muscle mass. And when we get a decrease in our muscle mass, and those of you that do work out a lot, you may have noticed that it's really changed once you get into perimenopause, and the same amount of working out is not giving you the same results in terms of your muscle mass. Certainly something that I noticed at the beginning of my perimenopause, before I even knew I was in perimenopause, because often periods and cycles are still fairly regular. Takes a little bit of time for many women to realize that they're in perimenopause because, if your cycle is regular, you just assume everything is okay. And if you have things like insomnia, if you have things like some night sweats, you may not necessarily correlate that with perimenopause. Probably hot flushes you would think of as perimenopause, but not all women get that at the beginning of the perimenopause kind of scenario. So the hormonal changes trigger these metabolic changes. And one of the main things too is insulin resistance, which is one of those metabolic changes that happens in perimenopause. And that is where our blood glucose regulation can be off. And that can lead to things like sugar cravings, which often, if you're not really putting a lot of thought into what you're eating and you're stressed, increased cortisol also triggers issues with blood glucose regulation and can cause these sugar or carb cravings. And again, if you're not thinking too much about what you're eating and you just have snacks and things like that, and you end up constantly eating throughout the day, that is going to really promote weight gain. That loss of muscle mass means that we're not burning as much energy at rest. So that is one factor. So if we've got excess energy, that can be stored as fat. That fat generally starts to get stored around the center of the body. Now, there is a genetic influence to this. So if you look at the women in your family, if the women in your family tend to be more of that apple shape, particularly once they hit menopause, that is possible that you may end up with that shape. But there are some important words I want you to hear. You may end up in that shape if nothing is being done to prevent it. And this is what I love about the work that I do, is it's all about prevention. All about prevention. And even if you are already at a stage where you've had that menopausal weight gain, it is absolutely possible to reverse that. It is possible. I just loved it when I was doing this reading to answer this question. I found this quote. I'm actually going to read the quote because I just love it so much. If the people in your family also carry more weight in the midsection, especially after menopause, there is a higher likelihood that you will, if nothing is being done to prevent it. So I guess that's a couple of the reasons that this perimenopausal, menopausal weight gain happens. And the thing is, it'll often happen at the beginning of that perimenopausal change. So that can happen 7 to 10 years before you reach menopause. And again, if nothing is being done to prevent it, that weight gain can happen and it can be quite rapid. I talk to women that are putting on, 6 to 12 kilos in a year. And, when you think about that, that's only half to 1 kilo a month. And that sometimes can be weight that's not particularly noticeable until your clothes start getting a little tighter. Especially if you don't weigh yourself very often. And I absolutely don't recommend getting really obsessive about the scales. Often your clothes can tell you a lot more about what's going on in your body in terms of weight gain compared to the scales, because the scales are not taking into account your body composition. So if you've taken up a new gym program, for example, if you're doing some resistance training and building muscle, you may actually gain weight because muscle is heavier than fat, but in fact your body composition might be improving and you might have less body fat percentage and more muscle gain. So just always remember that if you're looking at weight as a measure of your success, I guess, when you're looking at weight gain or weight loss. That's why I always use body measurements as well. So waist, hip, and thigh measurement are really important to monitor, but particularly the waist. So that is something also to consider if you're looking at weight management in menopause or perimenopause, is perhaps just start looking at your waist measurement, particularly if you get a little triggered by scales. I work with a lot of women that don't like weighing themselves, some actually don't weigh themselves. They get a friend to look at the scales if they need to weigh themselves. I know at the beginning of the GLOW protocol or metabolic balance, we do need to get an initial weight. And so, but after that, I don't necessarily need to use weight as a measure because we can use body measurements. But yeah, these metabolic changes that are triggered by the hormone fluctuations of menopause are really what causes this menopausal weight gain. And if nothing is done to prevent it, that can happen. It's not inevitable. It doesn't happen to every woman, but it seems to happen to a lot of women. Certainly that change of the body fat moving towards the center of the body does seem to be a fairly regular pattern with women. and it does increase your cardiovascular risk. And even though when we're in our 40s and our 50s, we don't kind of really think too much about our cardiovascular risk, right? We're not thinking about our dementia risk. We're not thinking about our diabetes risk necessarily, unless we start to get a diagnosis like high blood pressure or high cholesterol or something like that. So I think that the sooner you can start kind of thinking about prevention of chronic illness, the better off you will be. And that starts with getting armed with information. So part of gathering your information, whether you're getting it off trusted sources on the internet or whether you're getting it from your healthcare professional, part of the prescription, I'm using inverted commas here, for any sort of weight management is to look at what you're eating, look at the timing of what you're eating, making sure you're hydrated, making sure your stress is well managed, and also considering all of these things that I just mentioned as being a part of your lifestyle rather than a short-term strategy or a short-term plan. I find often when I'm speaking with women prior to them signing up for the GLOW protocol, they might ask me, how long does this diet go for? It's not actually a diet. This is a lifestyle change. And if you have that mindset going into it, it makes this such a rewarding journey, because this is about you basically taking the ultimate steps for self-care, because this is about improving your life over the next decades of your life so that you're not ending up with mobility issues, so that you're not ending up with brain issues, with heart issues, with diabetes. So if you can work from the place of prevention, which is what I love about natural medicine as opposed to conventional medicine. As you probably know, if you've followed me for a while, I have a very long background, way longer than the background I have in natural medicine. So I was a registered nurse and I was in the pharmaceutical industry. So it's about as conventional medicine as it gets. And that is all about approaching the health of someone once they have a disease, right? Whereas natural medicine, yes, we absolutely can help manage different medical conditions, but a lot of what we do is about prevention. And particularly when working with weight and healthy weight management, it is all about preventing. I mean, obviously there's an aesthetic aspect, but it's all about preventing these chronic diseases. So for you as a client, you might come into my program wanting that aesthetic outcome. But for me, as your healthcare practitioner, I am all about preventing chronic disease so that your life and your quality of life improves. Your life extends and your quality of life improves. So I feel like I've really rambled today. Maybe I have. But I'm curious to see what you think. Like if you're looking for yourself for weight management, are you thinking of it as a short term, I'm going to do this diet for X number of weeks and then I'll have reached my goal weight and then I can just go back to what I'm doing? Because I'm sorry to give you this perhaps hard news, but once you are hitting these sort of years, your perimenopause and menopausal years, you have changes going on in your body that are permanent. These hormonal changes that are going on in your body are permanent. And even if you're taking the hormone replacement therapy, yes, there actually can be some weight loss associated with that, which is awesome. But also you've got to put the other pillars in place, the dietary pillars, the stress management, the movement, etc. So yeah, I'm interested in your feedback. Feel free to message me at Susie Garden Wellness on Instagram or through email, hello@susiegarden.com. Or there is, I think, a link. It depends on your podcast provider. There should be a link to send me a text. Anywho, I hope this has been a little thought-provoking. You may be feeling a little challenged by what I've said, particularly in regard to the mindset around around dietary kind of programs. But Yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I hope you're enjoying your week and have a great weekend. I will be back next Tuesday with a fresh episode. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you like today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts or the follow button if you're on Spotify so that you get each new episode delivered to you every week. If you like free stuff, then head to the show notes and click the link to receive my free Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for perimenopausal women. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.